Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Darewolf PJ Black, and you're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio.
You're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio, featuring the Interactive Interview, courtesy of WrestlingEpicenter.com. Well, hello there. Welcome to another edition of Interactive Wrestling Radio right here on WrestlingEpicenter.com. Today we bring you an interview with a guy who actually just ended up on the newsline just a couple hours before we interviewed him, talking about a serious injury. I was worried if he'd even be available to do the interview. As we find out, this happened a few weeks prior, but gosh, that's a scary situation. Glad he's okay. Of course, I'm talking about the Darewolf, PJ Black from Lucha Underground, former Justin Gabriel from the WWE, and I hope you guys enjoy hearing his story. Lots of fun, very, very easygoing guy to talk to. Can't wait to see him get back in the ring and hope he feels better soon. Be sure and check out WrestlingEpicenter.com for our latest interviews. We just had on the Monster Abyss for the second time, this time going under the name Joseph Park. Had on Kelly Klein recently, a lot of other great guests, Vampiro. Check out our archives, which go back all the way to 2002, including interviews with Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, Mean Gene Okerlund, Bobby the Brain Heenan, and so many more. Check out WrestlingEpicenter.com and click the archives link, or the interviews link, for our interviews archive. Without any further ado, hey, let's play a Lucha Underground commercial for the guy that we're having on. How cool is that? Here's the Darewolf here on WrestlingEpicenter.com.
Hola, this is the Wednesday Night Delight, Johnny Mundo, and you're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Hey, man, this is Vampiro, and you are listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio.
I'm addicted to danger. That's why I put my body on the line in the ring.
This is one of the most exciting and dynamic athletes.
I'm the Darewolf PJ Black, and I fear nothing.
Darewolf on Lucha Underground Season 3. New episode Wednesday at 8 p.m. on El Rey Network.
Sponsored by Cricket Wireless. Something to smile about.
Welcome back to Interactive Wrestling Radio. On the Newsmaker line with us right now is a former WWE superstar, then known as Justin Gabriel, now Lucha Underground superstar, PJ Black, a man who's been in the news today, actually. How you doing today, Mr. Black?
I'm doing very good, considering. How are you doing today, buddy?
It's great to have you on the show. I'm doing great, by the way. It sounds like I'm having a better day than you had a few weeks ago. I guess scrap the format. Basically, what happened? How are you doing? And what's the real story about what happened to you a few weeks ago?
I did a base jump. I jumped off a building, about a 320-foot building, which is actually plenty high. People think, like, was it too low or whatever happened? What happened is, short version, I jumped. My body position wasn't perfect. The parachute opened with a 180-degree turn, so instead of flying away from the building, I flew straight into the building. I managed to kick off one of the ledges and flip myself around, but in doing that, I broke my ankle, and then while I was flipping around, my finger got caught in a satellite dish when it ripped at the tip of the finger off.
Oh, my gosh.
Got two titanium plates in my leg, and pretty messed up finger, but I'm alive, so that's pretty cool.
Well, being alive is definitely the most important thing. I guess this is probably too early to ask, but how long will you be out of commission?
So the South African doctors told me, pretty good doctors, by the way, they were like, 3 to 4 weeks non-weight bearing, so I'm still on crutches, and then I can start walking at least, but I'm obviously with a moon boot on. But then the American doctors found some extra arthritis and dead bones and stuff in my joints, so they reckon on crutches for about 3 months. So anything between 6 months and 12 months, depending on how quickly I recover. I guess the arthritis and the dead bones are just from my 20 years of wrestling.
Right. Oh, man, that's awful. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. It's a kind of a downer way to start the interview today, but I'm glad, like I said, I'm glad you're still alive and kicking. Could have been a lot worse.
Exactly. It could have been a lot worse, and I'm glad that's out of the open now, because I also, I have a bunch of friends call me today and text me saying, hey, what happened? Because I only read it today, so at least now the real story's out there.
Yeah, my wife comes to me in the other room. We post news on our site, and we get our news from other places as well as, make our own. And she comes in the room and she says, you might not be interviewing PJ tonight. And I said, why? And she's like, he was in some horrible accident. I'm thinking, but it says he did it a few weeks ago, and I've talked to him since then. I had no idea, man. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, all good. Well, you got the first scoop of it, so you got the real story.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate that. All right. Well, on happier news, I think all of us wrestling dorks are really happy to have Lucha Underground Season 3 back on the air. I know this stuff was filmed a long time ago, frankly, probably too long ago, but is it cool for you guys, the Lucha Underground guys, to finally have your work that you put in last year seen to us believers?
Yes, oh my God, it's so exciting. And, it's even cool. For a little while there, I can't watch wrestling because there's so much to watch out there, right? I just cannot keep up with 10, 15 hours of wrestling each week. But watching the Lucha show is like watching it for the first time, because there's so many storylines that I had no idea about, because everything's filmed out of sequence. So it's like watching a brand new show. It's very exciting, and it's pretty cool that we're on Netflix now. More eyes there are more eyes on the show right now. And it's pretty cool. I was just traveled to South Africa and in the UK and Australia, and all those fans watch the show, obviously illegally, but one of these days it'll be on Netflix legally for them too.
Well, I mean, it is the most exciting. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I watch everything I can get my hands on, and it's the one show that I actually got my kids to sit down and watch, and they'll watch it with me because they don't watch any other wrestling. And I think it's just those big characters and just the way that it's presented. Where I grew up. We're actually within 6 months of the same age, so we kind of grew up watching a lot of the same stuff. So I think that
was exciting when we were kids, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It was over the top characters when we were kids, and the very charismatic and colorful characters. I think that wrestling on TV these days, the live shows, which ones I'm talking about, they focus too much about, I don't know what they call it, the reality era. They try to make it too real. Everyone knows it's not real, so why not just run with it and have over-the-top characters?
All right. I agree with you. Now, the negative, though, we did talk a little bit about the negative. How do you guys take it, though, the fact that there was that kind of unexpected hiccup in the middle of season 3 where kind of just halted right in the middle, and now you're back, but there was that hiccup, and obviously it left us kind of feeling a little bit left out when that happened. How do you guys, the talent, take it when that happens?
The same way. I mean, it was kind of it was kind of unexplained. I mean, I did some research, and it was no surprise. It was the heads of the actual network who. They got a new head of network, and obviously I don't want to say too much. I'll probably get into trouble, but I guess it was they had to change stuff around, and numbers had to match up, and they had to do a few things. The new guy had to do a few things to make himself look good, But I mean that's a whole nother story. We're just glad to be back on TV, and it's pretty cool. We're just happy for the fans. We feel the same way. We if it's not on TV every week, we don't feel like we're doing anything. Even though it was filmed a while ago.
It was fun. Yes, absolutely. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your decision to join Lucha, because it was kind of a product that I dragged my feet on watching, and I've told a lot of people this, but I dragged my feet because I didn't know what it would be. And then finally, after months of my buddy telling me, you're going to love it, just watch it, and finally I did, and it blew my mind. You were a guy who came over into the second season from Global Force, and it was kind of perceived that you were like the Global Force guy. Was that a tough decision for you to make to leave Global Force behind and go to Lucha Underground?
It was a very, very tough decision for multiple reasons. Jeff Jarrett, like, he was like, you're gonna be my guy, and like, he gave me, I could literally do anything I wanted, and he was good to me, and like, we share the same vision, which is very rare, me and a promoter these days. But yeah, it was very hard. So Lucha Underground contacted me for the first season, but that was like the week that I left WWE, or maybe like the same month or whatever. But at that time, I didn't want to sign with anyone because TNA called, ROH called, like all these companies, and I was like, listen, I just want to do my own thing for a while. I've never done the indies in the U.S., so let me just see what that is about, like. And I told the guys at Lucha, I was like, call me back a year from now. And within that year, I started watching the show, and I was like, holy crap, this is amazing. Like, how did I say no to this? But obviously, I didn't know what it was going to be. And then,
Exactly.
yeah, they actually called me back the 1st of October, exactly a year later, and I was like, yep, sign me up. And they're like, hey, do you want to discuss contracts and stuff like that? I was like, hey, whatever you guys are offering, I'll just sign it. I'm happy with that. And, yeah, I told Jeff, I was like, hey, man, this is something I have to do. If the Global Force show got picked up onto TV, it might have been a different story, but like I just had a feeling that it was going to, I know how these things work, right? It was going to take a while before it got picked up, and it still hasn't got picked up, so I guess it was the right decision, eh?
I was going to say, yeah, was like the writing on the wall at all there that the Global Force wasn't going to get on the ground the way that kind of everybody thought it would.
Yeah, and I mean, I have no doubt, and maybe it still will. Like, I mean, I've seen some of the stuff that we recorded. We recorded like a whole season in Vegas, and the crowds were phenomenal. Like the storylines were really good. And the talent, it was a very different show. Like like all the wrestling on TV these days, apart from Lucha, are like very, very the same. And Global Force actually did something different. So I kind of hope that people get to see the season that we filmed sometime in the future.
Yeah. Absolutely. Speaking of being filmed a while ago, I think that was done about 2 years ago. So here's hoping that it does, see the light of day someday.
Right, or even if they just, I know Jeff took over TNA, maybe they just like combine it and air some of the matches here and there or whatever. I mean, we really did some cool stuff.
Yeah, the Fight Network owns it, so theoretically they could put those up in like a like a Netflix kind of thing. Just put the season up and we'll see what happens.
Exactly. Or they just sell a DVD so fans at least could see it. I mean, I definitely want to see it. It's like this. It's like a DVD. I'll buy it.
Sure, absolutely. All right. So my next question was actually going to be about being the Darewolf and how that came about. But it sounds like, given your current circumstance, we've kind of talked a little bit about that. I guess my question would be, I watched, I always do my research. I checked out a lot of different things that you had done interview-wise. And you told a story once about making sure Vince knew that you were a daredevil and putting together like a tape for him to see of you doing stunts. Yep. Did you want to bring this Darewolf, this daredevil character, to the WWE?
I did. That was my plan. I mean, I experimented with a bunch of different characters. I wasn't being used on TV, so I was like, all right, back to the drawing board. I wasn't like one of the guys who just sit in the back and just, collect a paycheck. I wanted to work. I didn't really care too much about the money at the time. I just wanted to work and be on TV and be in a cool storyline, and people get to see my work. And obviously I wasn't being used. So anyway, I started working on all these different characters and like a bunch of different, Dusty helped me with a bunch of promos and like, just all kinds of stuff. And like, we kind of like got stuck on this Darewolf character. It was I guess, because the fans in WWE called me Cape Town Werewolf. I guess this was like during the Twilight days, I guess.
Yeah.
And then Matt Striker came up with the idea like to put the werewolf and a daredevil, because the character was like a daredevil, like a modern day Evel Knievel character. So he just came up with the word Darewolf, and everyone loved it except Hunter. WWE actually trademarked that immediately. But like there's some with the patent laws in the U.S., like if you don't use it within like 12 months, it gets abandoned, and then someone else can apply for it. So like, when I left, one day I was like, I don't know what I was doing, but I was Googling, and I was like, I came across this file. It said it was abandoned, and I was like, yep, I'll just trademark it right now myself. So it's not a word that exists. So I was like, could be onto something.
Could be onto something, absolutely. Why do you think Triple H didn't like it?
I'm not sure if he didn't like it, but like when I told him, I was like, hey, I got this great idea. And he goes, just because you came up with it doesn't make it a good idea. And I have no idea what that means. I still think about it till this day. But I mean, he's a very sarcastic person, so maybe he was like on the spot. That's what he came up with, you know.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, we talked a little bit about being the same age, but I will tell you that I have not seen that much South African wrestling. I wanted to ask you, obviously, the guys that we did see from South Africa, the Simpsons in World Class and so forth, they were, for their day, high flyers. Is South African wrestling, did that really inspire the high flying, or is it something that just kind of you were compelled to follow?
Yeah, no, the Simpsons were high flyers, so I was obviously fans of them. Their dad was the promoter, and not many people know this, but like in the 80s, 70s and 80s, early 90s, South Africa was actually one of the territories. Like back in the day, how wrestlers used to move away from territories and stay there for months. Like Finley and Regal and all those guys stay there for like 10, 11 months. And I remember a kid seeing like Hogan job to our champion and like Andre the Giant come over, because there wasn't internet back then. There was no YouTube back then. So like people wouldn't post results of like Hogan jobbing to like the local champion in Africa. It's a pity that there's not enough like evidence, like footage of this stuff. Like I try to dig out like old photos of my dad, and I could find like old photos of Undertaker. Like some of his first matches were there. I wish there was a bit of like. Sometimes I think I should just write a book about that because it's actually very, very interesting. But yeah, wrestling kind of died out in '99 in South Africa, and yeah, the Simpsons were high flyers, but like our style was very much influenced by the British style. But obviously the high flying style at that time was very exciting, and my dad traveled a lot, so he used to bring me tapes back. So he used to bring me Japanese tapes back and tapes from CMLL and like all these. What I did, I just combined all these styles. I mean, I'm sure I didn't create that, but like I just took all these different styles and put it into one, which is kind of like today's hybrid style. Like if you go to any indie show, that's what everyone really does these days.
Absolutely, it's that's the in thing to do that. Yeah. And you guys, I mean, you really were one of the first to do it, especially on a grand scale like in the WWE. WWE, you had a lot of different stables you were part of. They always seemed to be pairing you with guys, but the one that seemed to stick for a while was Heath Slater. I've heard a lot of people say that he's kind of the modern era jokester, as in like the Owen Hart or the Kurt Hennig was in their day. Is that true? And do you have any good stories from Heath Slater on the road?
Oh man, so many good stories. Yeah, he's the man. He's like just a good human being, a good soul. Like nothing. Like he'll get depressed and miserable like most of the guys, but the way that he handles himself is just he's in a different class. A real country boy. He'll probably have a job for life because you can stick him in any storyline. You can have him cut promos. You can have him do the jobs, play the comedy guy, be the real wrestler guy. He just fits in anywhere. Let's see. The night that we won the tag titles was the first time. So me and him used to, for like a year, we traveled together. We shared a room on the road. And Heath is one of those guys that sleeps with the TV on, right? So I'd wake up in the middle of the night, switch the TV off, like every night. The night that we won the tag titles, I wake up in the middle of the night, I switch the TV off, but I see he's not in his bed. So I kind of like look around, but I just kind of fall back asleep. But he comes running out the bathroom, and he's got a cigar in the one hand. He's got the title on, butt naked, and a blow dryer in the other hand. And he's just yelling to himself. He goes, "Woo! We did it! Angel, we did it!" He still calls me Angel to this day, by the way.
That's awesome. I don't want to picture it, but
that was my first character. Was just Justin Gabriel, Justin Angel. That was the first character. And then actually, when NXT started, Vince changed it on the day without me knowing. So like I walked to the ring and I heard the announcer say Justin Gabriel. I was like, what? I was like, oh, no, I'm Justin Angel. And then I guess it just stuck from there.
Did they think Justin Angel was too close to like Just Incredible or something?
No, I think Vince's friends with Chris Angel, and that was the time
the magician.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't
see
that.
Yeah, apparently they're good friends. Like I think Vince gave him his start or something. Like Vince, I don't know the whole story, but I mean that was part of the story that he made the name change. And I think for most part it was So that era when NXT started, it was like the start of they wanted to be like a reality show, and they're like, oh, Justin Angel was too gimmicky. Like, you know, like they wanted everyone to have real names. I don't know if anyone actually noticed this, but like everyone had 2 names in the first season, you know, like a first name and a last name, and everyone wore trunks in the first season of NXT. It was supposed to be like a reality show. It was going to be a reality show, actually. They were going to put us in a house and film everything, you know, like the Ultimate Fighter. They were going to do exactly that, but then like the writers left everything too long, and like 2 days before, they're like, oh, all that house stuff fell through. Let's just you guys just go out there and freestyle. You know, here's 5-minute segments, and just, you know, do whatever.
So, what do you think of how NXT has become now? Because it went from, as you said, everybody had trunks and everybody just wore trunks, had 2 names and all that. So now we have a very popular show, which people say is a lot like what we grew up with, you know, 70s and 80s, you know, logically booked wrestling.
Oh yeah, definitely. And if you think about it too, it actually looks like an 80s territory, you know, like where people come in, they work for a little bit, and then they move on to the next territory. I know it's supposed to be like a developmental system, but like it doesn't feel like that anymore, which is kind of cool. It's kind of become its own promotion, its own territory, you know, and that's what gives it that cool feel. Like, you know, like we get nostalgic because that's like the stuff we grew up with.
Mm-hmm. I agree, and that circles us back to Lucha Underground, which, you know, Brian Cage, we had him on back in November, and he said something along the lines of, "It finally feels like what I thought it would be like to be a wrestler," and you know, that's kind of like what it is to be a wrestling fan. You know, to see this stuff and just be, okay, cool. These are larger than life characters. I mean, for so long we were so delved into that reality thing that, at the expense of creativity to some extent. And this is just like blowing the doors off that. So I really love Lucha Underground and what you guys are doing. I guess, you know, what can we expect to see from the rest of the season of Season 3?
Oh, man, the rest of the season is actually pretty cool. I mean, I've been wrestling for 20 years, and I've been watching wrestling my whole life. But the actual wrestling, the actual matches of Season 3 is like some of the best I've ever seen. I don't want to give you any spoilers. I want to ruin it for you. But like the Cueto Cup, I think, just started this week. There's some phenomenal matches, like all the way through that. Personally, for me, my 2 best matches that I've ever had in my life is in this tournament. It might be a few weeks away. Yeah. And again, I don't want to tell you who it is because I don't know if you've seen the brackets. So it's way more fun if you just watch it. But
we're looking forward to it.
Yeah. There's some really good stuff in this season. Like I'm looking forward to watch it because, like I said, we don't get to watch some of the storylines, you know, like some of the vignettes that they film and stuff. So we only get to see it now. So we're like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. We had Vampiro on. I'm not a name dropper, I promise, but we had him on a few weeks ago, and I asked him about Season 4, you know, when they're going to film Season 4 and so forth. His question to me back was, let me ask you a question. Who says there is going to be a Season 4? And I kind of went, uh-oh. What do you know? Do you know anything?
I don't know anything, but I mean, rumors are like we'll go back to filming in October. But then, you know, again, nothing has been set in stone yet. And that's actually funny that you say that. Like I think that all the time. I'm like, is there going to be a Season 4? But I'm pretty sure there will be a season. I signed for like 3 more seasons, so like I'm pretty sure they would have let me out of my contract by now if that wasn't the case.
I sure hope so, because like I said, it's the one. You know, I've been a wrestling fan, you know, since I was a toddler. Growing up, I remember vividly. I turned the TV on, and Hulk Hogan and Junkyard Dog were in the ring, and it was like they were celebrating on one of the first Saturday night's main events. Couldn't have been more than 4, and I was just going nuts. I mean, it was like the most amazing, colorful thing I'd ever seen, even colorful than Muppet Babies and things like that. So it was just awesome, and I've been a fan ever since. And like I said, this Lucha Underground thing has kind of given me at least some satisfaction for my kids getting it. You know, for the first time, they kind of get what I see in this stuff. So I appreciate what you guys do.
Yeah, I know, like that. It's those little memories. It's funny that you say that takes you back, and you can actually remember the exact same day, and you know, like what segment it was that turned you on to the wrestling. That's actually how I feel like about that Lucha too. Like you know, like I've been wrestling for so long. Like matches don't excite me anymore. Like every once in a while, I'll see a character or a match or a move, and I go, "Oh, that was kind of cool." but it's hard to like get me emotionally involved in it. And I feel like with a lot of like 90% of the matches with Lucha that I've watched so far, you know, like I was totally invested and I felt like a kid again, and which, you know, like gave me my passion back, which makes me want to work harder and like have better matches, because these young up and coming kids are like so far ahead of like the kids of a few years back, you know.
Absolutely. Well, just a few more questions, then we'll let you go. You're living in LA now, right? You're a West Coast guy in the U.S., right?
Correct. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how does it differ? Because I know, like, Steve Simpson tried to stick around in Dallas as long as he could, and so on and so forth. But how does it differ from living, you know, in Africa? And what is it like? You know, is there a major culture shock?
I mean, there was, but I mean, people ask me all the time, like, hey, how long have you been? How long have you been here? And I always go 4 years. That's like my standard answer. And the other day I was like, wait a minute, I got signed to WWE in 2008, so that's like 9 years now that I've lived here. You know, like and with WWE, I was lucky enough. I've wrestled in 48 states. I'm missing Montana and Vermont still. But yes, I've seen the whole of the U.S. and I've seen the whole of the world, and it's pretty cool because that's what I like. I like the culture shock, as you put it, and I like California a lot. I like the food here. I like the people. The weather's always good. You know, home will always be home. I actually broke my leg in South Africa a few weeks ago, and I got to stay home, and I don't often get to go home, and it'll always be home. But like for now, I think Cali's my home now. From now on, I think.
All right. Awesome. Well, I'm going to let you go with just a couple more questions, but one of my last questions is going to be, of course, the obligatory WWE question. Everybody always asks this question, but I have to because that's what they expect.
You have to.
Is there any intent? Yeah, is there any intent down the road thinking about, maybe I'll go back one day?
Never say never. It's a huge possibility, especially with the way things are run now. They actually have contacted me a few times for 205 Live, but obviously I'm signed to Lucha, first of all, and second of all, I weigh 220 pounds right now, and where 205 is a legit 205, they actually do weigh-ins and stuff like that. They were actually going to make stories out of people trying to drop weight, and I was like, I'm not willing to lose the weight. I kind of like being a heavyweight. But yeah, never say never, man. I think it's a huge possibility, especially now with all the guys going back, and I know a few more friends that are going to go back very soon. So like, you know, like it's going to be very hard. If they do offer me something, it's going to be hard to say no. But yeah, we'll see. It also depends on if I'll ever get back to normal with this leg.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously it's very early, so hopefully that heals up quickly and you'll be able to be back to Darewolf form in no time.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't think I'll be 100%, but I've changed my style up a lot. I've kind of been studying like fit for knee tapes and, you know, changing my style up like that. I still do the high-flying stuff, but like that way when I do whip it out, people are like, oh, wow. Like, I was at a show the other day, and this kid was like, oh, man, you still got it. And I was like, I've always had it. I just don't always do it, you know. That's why he was so surprised when I actually did it. And that was actually a pretty cool feeling. So I'm like, I'm going to do more of that, you know, like just save all the high-flying stuff for when I really need it and just do like this bash brawl fit for me style.
You know, that actually reminds me, and maybe I can get you to weigh in on this. Randy Orton recently posted this whole dive thing. I'm sure that you being active, you probably read about it. It actually initiated with Rip Rogers posting it, and Randy Orton shared it, and now Randy Orton gets all the credit for it. But any thoughts on that whole, you know, dive thing?
I'm not familiar with like what happened. I don't think I read this. Was it a
okay? It was like an angry rant about independent wrestling, and basically the story is you go in the ring, you do a certain amount of moves, somebody dives, the crowd chants, you get back in the ring, you take another dive, and it spawned a #dive kind of phenomenon that was going on for a while, and Bully Ray over at ROH and a lot of other guys kind of got in on poking fun at it, but basically the whole thing is picking on the fact that independent wrestling has, in his opinion, started to follow a format of high spot, high spot, high spot, and then the crowd chants that is awesome and things like that. It's kind of funny coming from a guy who never really worked the indies, but what are you going to do?
I know, right? Yeah, that's pretty funny. Like, yeah, so I completely missed all of that. I don't know where I must have been in hospital or something, but or base jumping. But yeah, that is funny. Like when I came to the indies too, it was a very hard transition because obviously the style is very different, but that's the indie style. You know, like guys don't work like that all the time. Guys that have no name have to do something to capture the crowd's attention. Like it's funny for me to go to these shows and actually give these kids advice. You know, like everything has a place. Like I don't believe that the dive stuff is that psychology is necessarily right, but I don't believe that it's necessarily wrong either. You know, like if there's a time and place for everything, and if you structure the match correctly and you put that dive or the sequence in, and also on the card, like I do a lot of seminars lately, and I try to explain to kids like how that's like my main thing is psychology and how to structure matches together, and also how to structure a card together. Like, you know, if you're in the first match, you don't go all out and do all these dives, and you don't do chairs and stairs and everything in the first match. And that's what I'm trying to like teach these kids, you know, because they don't have territories anymore. Like the indie promoters just want them to kill themselves so fans can buy tickets and merch. You know, like there's no territories, there's no one to teach them this. So like I feel like all us ex-WWE guys, you know, like well, one or two of us are still willing to help. The other guys are just like, yeah, whatever. They're just there for the payday. Like, you know, I try to help out as many kids as possible. And all the kids that I worked in my first year got signed, by the way, because they kind of like didn't follow my advice, but they kind of like followed my, I wouldn't say lead, but like I gave them some advice on how to structure stuff and when they do go for WWE tryouts, what to do and what not to do. And it seemed like it worked out for all of them.
Awesome, man. Well, I can see why everybody likes you, man. You're so easygoing and easy to get along with. I really appreciate you taking this time to be with us tonight. Before I let you go, I have one favor to ask and also a chance to plug anything, because obviously you're not going to be on the scene for a little bit due to the injury. Where can folks check out and keep up with PJ Black?
You can go to pjblack.com, and all my info is on there. You know, like the Twitter, the Instagram, the Facebook, all the links on there. Because a lot of people always ask me, like, hey, is this Facebook real? I'm like, just go to my website. You know, like if that's the right link, then that's the right link. You know, I'm very active on like Twitter and Instagram lately, especially because I'm lying around the house a lot. So I try to like interact with fans as much as possible. I have some new merch ideas and some new stuff that I'm going to put up on the website in the next 2 or 3 days, so I can at least make a little bit of money while I'm just sitting at home doing nothing. And I also I write blogs on there, so if you're interested in it, there's actually some pretty cool stuff that I've written. Mostly wrestling related. The last one I did, I haven't posted it yet. I'll probably post it tonight. It's about why do I base jump, because like this is my second injury and everyone's like, you're gonna quit jumping now, right? And I just wanted to write that so people can understand why I do this. Yeah, so basically everything's on pjblack.com.
Yeah, I had read that you jump out of airplanes, and actually one of the questions on my sheet that I scrapped because of the injury was, why would you jump out of a perfectly good airplane? But
because the door was open.
Here's a good answer. I like that. All right. Last favor to ask. Would you mind giving me one of the liners just saying this is PJ Black and you're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio?
Yeah, you got it.
All right.
Right now?
And I'll do the Wayne's World count you down in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Darewolf PJ Black, and you're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Boom. First take and you nailed it.
Did I get that right?
You got it bingo. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, perfect.
Enjoying what you're hearing? Be sure and check out WrestlingEpicenter.com on social media at Facebook.com/WrestlingEpicenter, on Twitter at James Epicenter, and of course, WrestlingEpicenter.com for 24-hour news updates, our interview archives, and all the other information you've come to expect from the Wrestling Epicenter.